For Session Update, I'm Shannon Loehrke. There are currently more than 150 medication collection boxes at law enforcement facilities in Minnesota, and a bill before the Senate could make disposal of unwanted or expired prescription drugs even more accessible and convenient. Proper disposal of these chemicals keeps Minnesota's lakes and rivers cleaner and is another tool to reducing access to painkillers, which are linked to the rise in heroin addiction. Joining me in the studio to talk about her bill that would allow pharmacies to also collect these medications is Senator Julie Rosen. Welcome, Senator.
Good morning, Shannon.
So why is the appropriate disposal of medications important?
Well, I think the inappropriate disposal of medications is probably what we should be talking about. As you said, into our lakes and streams, people have been flushing it down the toilet. It's getting into the hands of people that should not be using them. We've seen some crime around people breaking into somebody's home to look in their medicine cabinet, and actually that case outside of St. Cloud, where those two young kids and they were shot, that was around prescription drugs. So we have a serious issue that can be alleviated by actually having more drop-off locations at the pharmacies, and it just makes sense.
Do you know why options have been limited to law enforcement disposal up to this point?
There was some issues dealing with whether it's a hazardous waste or with the long-term care facilities, which is also in the bill that it can be disposed of there. But we have mitigated those, and we moved on. And actually, this bill is on the Senate floor. We passed this last year. It's the House that has moved on it. So Senator Klobuchar had a press conference on it 2 weekends ago, and unfortunately I was not able to make it there, but it is a huge issue on the federal side. Sheriff Stanek from Hennepin County, this was one of his big priorities. He was very much in favor of, has sent letters, was at the press conference, was willing to testify, and I said, Sheriff, we have got our work done. It's sitting on the Senate floor, and I'm anxious for it to get signed.
So in the actual language of the bill refers to legend drugs. Can you describe for me what that means?
No, actually.
Okay, but does it refer to basically any prescription drug?
Right, any prescription drug, whatever substance control.
And my understanding is it's also then drugs for pets or any kind of controlled substance.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
A schedule, whatever schedule it is.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, this bill seems like common sense. Are there any downsides?
No, there really isn't, because we had made sure that, number one, that when you are disposing of it, it is not considered hazardous, but that is extremely tamper-proof. So we can make sure that it doesn't have to have a special removal, like go to a special hazardous waste dump site. It will go to an incinerator, but it can't. The bag, once it's sealed, cannot be tampered. So there's no ability to go in there and tamper with it of any way.
Do pharmacies have the option to opt out of this if they don't want to participate?
Yes.
And is there a security risk? As you mentioned, people are breaking into homes to get a hold of drugs. If pharmacies are collecting these drugs, does that put them in any greater risk for crime?
No, because I would say they have all the drugs right behind the counter anyway. So
you would have to actually give it to a person or put it someplace where it's completely off limits. It's not like your printer cartridges that just go in a bin at Target.
Right. Or Best Buy.
Or Best Buy. So if the bill does become law, how will the word get out? Is there funding so that people know to stop leaving these prescriptions in their cabinets where they can be accessed by children or, thieves or something? I mean, how will people know that this is the next step? When I'm done with this, how do I get rid of it?
Well, I'm hoping that there is no funding, but I'm hoping that there is a push from, number one, law enforcement, saying that there is other options besides that locale, and also from the Board of Pharmacy, which was their number one. This was a huge priority for them the last 2 years. They'll be putting out information on that, and I think it's going to stop a lot of abuse issues that we have. Just having that ability to get rid of this drug. As you know, when you come home from a major surgery, they give you a 30-day supply of Vicodin, and you may be only taking 1 or 2 days, and you have that drug, that Schedule 5 drug, in your medicine cabinet, and you're worried about where to take it, and you just aren't going to make a trip to the law enforcement center, but you will be going back to the pharmacy to get your Claritin or something,
Right,
and you can
sure,
drop it off then.
sure.
Actually, out in a lot of these kids' parties right now, I don't know if you've heard about them, where they have a party, they have a big bucket, and kids come with the drugs, a bottle of pills that they have got from some medicine cabinet, and they throw it in there, and then the game is to put your hand in and pick out a pill, and that's your drug of choice for the night.
That is so dangerous.
It's crazy.
Wow. So issues related to drug use and addiction have been important to you, just looking at your record. I mean, this is something you care about. What sparks this interest for you?
You know, it actually is nothing personal, or I've never had a family member that has been dealing with this, but what the major piece of legislation that I passed back in '05 was the methamphetamine legislation, that putting your Sudafed behind the counter and trying to stop all the meth that was being cooked in these locales, homes or abandoned properties.
Right.
And that was a huge piece of legislation that came from our local law enforcement, and we put together the meth task force. That was the judicial branch, the retail branch, the law enforcement, of course, DHS and health and transportation. It was about 35 people on that task force to deal with that particular issue going forward. It had a tremendous impact on stopping meth cooks around the state. But it had crept up into my district in southern Minnesota because Iowa had placed some legislation on children endangerment. And so the meth cooks just came up into southern Minnesota. I was notified. We got the task force together and put together one of the most groundbreaking meth legislations in the nation that a lot of states followed afterwards. But
it has been very effective.
It's been very effective, but we dealt with 5 big pieces at once, and that was the restriction of the Sudafed, child endangerment, remediation of contaminated property, disclosure of contaminated property, and then we had some treatment component into it. And it was very successful. But as you know, it's you take care of one drug issue, and
Right.
then another pops up, and now we have the heroin and we have the opioid, but I will tell you, meth is back, and meth is back in southern Minnesota in a vengeance, and it's terrible. In fact, in August I had the commissioner of DHS, corrections and public safety down into southern Minnesota to hear from law enforcement, and they are seeing a huge influx of imported meth coming in from. It's affecting in the body cavities of young females is what's happening. It's how it's being transported in.
Okay.
So they are.
So it's being made someplace else, but now it's being brought in because
Exactly.
it's so hard for them to make it here now.
Right. And you see the effects of meth quickly in out-of-home placement costs in the counties. When that starts to skyrocket, you go, why? And it's usually meth.
Well, at least in terms of prescription disposal,
Right.
Let's hope this gets through and this becomes new policy. And I thank you so much for stopping by today. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
I'll talk drugs with you anytime,
Okay,
Shannon. Thank
that's
you.
great.